Welcome everybody to episode 8 of Black, Brown, Yellow, White. Today we are here with Thabo Sefolosha, the very first Swiss basketball player in the NBA. He is the son of Patrick Sefolosha, a South African musician, and Swiss artist Christine Sefolosha. Thabo Sefolosha has made his debut in the World Premier Basketball League in 2006. He was taken as the 13th pick by the Philadelphia 76ers and then traded to the Chicago Bulls. So he has played for the Chicago Bulls, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Atlanta Hawks, the Utah Jazz, and the Houston Rockets. In 2012, Sefolosha and the Thunder reached the NBA Finals but were unfortunately defeated by the Miami Heat. Sefolosha announced his retirement from professional basketball on March 31st, 2021. Then, almost 2.5 years later, he had his final dance with Vevey Riviera, his hometown club. And yeah, I'm very happy to have you here today.
Thank you very much.
Thabo, for this interview.
Thank you.
Today, we'll be talking about racism, sports, empowerment, diversity, and more. And in the beginning, I would like to ask you about your sources of inspiration when you were growing up. So, what was maybe a historical figure or a sports figure that inspired you when you were young?
I think I had like many young kids. Michael Jordan probably in the world of basketball as the ultimate idol. And also a lot of other players that really inspired me and motivated me, to keep pushing in that field and wanting to be better and reach my full potential and reach my goals. So I think I got that from a lot of people. And other than that, I think just in life in general, my parents probably, the people the closest to me and the people that had the probably the biggest influence also. So just in the mindset of pursuing what I wanted to do, believing in myself and giving it my all.
You've been in many different places. You've had traveled across the world. So I was thinking, and you also have a South African background. So I was thinking, was there also an aspect of a certain culture, maybe certain rituals, etc., that inspired you or that stayed with you, that had an impact?
Of course, a lot of them. And my dad being a musician, I think that's one thing that the whole world, it's a language that the whole world speaks. And, living at that time, in the 80s, it was also a movement of freedom, through the music. It was certainly for my dad and the band that they had. And I think just growing up, that music really stuck with me. And to this day, I love the South African music and the singing and the beats and the drums and all of that. So I think that's one thing. It's almost it's a big part of who I am.
So then another aspect I was thinking about, all three of us, we've been on this planet already more than 40 years or more. And do you think there was maybe some kind of point in your life or an event where that gave you, this direction, where things changed, where you realized, okay, now I'm headed in this direction?
Maybe I think it was a few of them, where you have to reassess, and am I doing the right thing? Am I in the right direction? Early on for me, when I really fell in love with basketball, I really dedicated myself to being good and put a goal, that I wanted to reach. I think that was early on, maybe 14, 15 years old. And at that point, it was always at the back of my mind, and it motivated me, and it gave me a sense of purpose, maybe, and a sense of, a reason to keep pushing.
Okay, so now we've seen some of your sources of inspiration. Okay, so we'll jump to the heart of the matter, the heart of all these interviews, and that is the question to you: what is racism, your understanding, and what can be some of its causes and some of its effects?
Well, racism is a broad word, I think, and there's broad definition for it. My understanding of it, it comes from a lack of understanding. Quite honestly, it comes from a place of people misunderstanding and being, misinformed or stupid about a subject. I think it's something that, we all at time may be guilty of, portion of it or victim of some of it. But there's definitely some situations that are, bigger than others. And I think as a, South African and Black South African, we understand what that means for some situations. So it's important to be aware of it. Unfortunately, it's been with us for a very long time. And, with more love and more understanding, little by little, we can chip at it.
And now you have spent a lot of your time here in Switzerland, but also, of course, a lot of your time in the USA. Do you see a kind of difference between the forms of racism you encounter here and the ones in the US?
Oh, definitely, definitely, very different. And I think it stems also from the history of the country, obviously, and even here in Switzerland, it's different than what people experience in France, maybe, or Belgium, where they are, country that colonized and have a different history than here in Switzerland. So I think it's definitely felt and institutionalized some places in a different ways. And in the U.S., I think it opened my eyes to a different form of racism, especially from people that were, or, without their will, brought to a place called Americans, but definitely don't live as the rest of regular Americans in a lot of ways.
And then I'm gonna try to relate this to a bit of your experience. And you have been a professional athlete, professional basketball player for a long time in the USA. What, in your opinion, is the role which sports should take against racism?
I think it does every day, but it's unknowingly. When you're a kid and you watch your favorite sports stars, it does matter if they look like you a little bit or not, if you can. But at the end of the day, the best players are the best player, and I think it bridged that gap where a lot of people, whether it's through sports in the U.S. or music, a lot of people that don't necessarily understand the culture or have some type of feeling for people based on the on their skin tone, but they love the but they love the music that they do. They love what they do on the court. They love the way they play basketball and put the basket in the hoop, and that I think breaks some of those barriers.
Um, Quite bluntly, and this might be a bit of a sensitive issue, but you've been an African European athlete in the US, and maybe what have been some of your encounters with racism?
Let me just can I just pause? Can I just add something to what I was saying?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
I don't know if you're gonna find the same angle.
That's okay.
I'm gonna cut. Sorry.
And also, obviously, through sports, I think when you're young and you go into a sports team, it was definitely the case for me. People were coming from different backgrounds, and you meet people from different with different past and different origins, and I think that's very empowering. And you find that through sports, you find that through different avenues, and it's one of the beauty of sports. It brings people together.
Yeah. Now, you have been African European athlete in the US, and quite bluntly, what have been some encounters of yours with racism? Now, we know there's a well-documented case, and you've talked a lot about it in the media, so of course you can leave that out, but maybe there have been also some smaller encounters you've had with racism, and what kind of impact has it had on you?
The one thing I would say about that is that since a young age, I was very fortunate. I was living my dream through basketball and traveling the world. So when I was in Italy, I was a black athlete, but I was a basketball player for that city. And I think the way people saw me was different maybe than somebody that, came from, from the boat, through Greece and then Italy. So this whole thing was different. I was wearing a jersey,
Yeah.
and that's how people knew me with my name in the back of my jersey. So in the U.S., it was kind of the same thing, And what happened in New York, I think, speaks on that level of violence in the U.S., racism, and the systemic, way of targeting black people just for being black and wanting to make them feel less than, and remind them that their place in this society is this, and we see it around the world, with what's going on also with the different wars. The browner the skin, the less people care. It seems like, when you look at the TV and you look at things and the way people portray some wars in different places, it's the reality of the world.
Speaking on that, I saw during research that you have taken a stand, uh, a difficult stand, and I think a very admirable stand for Palestine. Could you talk about this just briefly? You taking that stand, because it's very difficult taking a stand in this topic. Sponsors, etc. It could, yeah.
And it shouldn't be, at the end of the day. Why is it so hard to speak on an issue like that? What's going on there? It's terrible, and it, before October 7 and the whole thing that's going on now, even before that, it was very reminiscent to me of what happened in South Africa.
Yeah.
That my father, my mom had to experience, my lineage had to experience. So when I see that anywhere around the world, it makes me feel some type of way. And I think that special conflict has a special meaning for everybody because it speaks on religious books, it speaks on a value proposition that was also a colonial idea. And because of that, I think it's everybody's issue and everybody should speak on it, and what's going on there, it's terrible.
Thank you. Now I would like to switch to, so to speak, the positive side. And I would like to know from you what for you is diversity and what are, some of its positive sides and where you have encountered it.
I have encountered it all around the world. Diversity is, obviously we come from diversity, but diversity is everywhere. I think here in Switzerland we had a wave of people coming from ex-Yugoslavia coming here to Switzerland, and Portuguese, and now it's a mix of different people mixing together, and that's what the world has experienced its whole history.
Yeah.
Ever since humankind has been on Earth, I think they've been traveling and connecting and bringing about a mix of different culture and different skin tone, and humans come in all shape and form. So we're seeing it more and more. I think it's a beautiful thing. It's the way the world works.
Yeah.
And in the history of times, we cannot stop it, and nobody has stopped it before. And I don't think it's wise to stop it. I think it's about integration, and I think it's about we have a lot more in common than we have to fight about.
Yeah. Thank you. That was very lovely put. I remembered one of my earlier interview. You also said that we are all migrants. We are all traveling this globe, and you have to make the most of it together.
Definitely.
Then you are a person of double cultural heritage. So on one side, there's the Swiss part here, growing up in Vevey, and also now again living in Vevey. And then there's also the South African part. And I remember reading that you were talking about the good times that you experience when you go back to your family in South Africa. And could you tell us how this influenced you, having two cultural heritage? Maybe you also have some things that stuck in your mind, some experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, the different phases in life where you embrace the culture and try to research about it and try to be whole, as a human being, and knowing that you come from there. It's the beautiful thing about, knowing your roots, and I always was interested in that, but you know, at the end of the day, I feel, especially now that I'm back here in Switzerland, you know, a lot of the culture comes from here, come from Europe, come from Switzerland. A lot of little pieces of it also from my time in the US. So I'm a I'm someone who I think is very open-minded, and I understand that, you know, some things are done one way in one place and another way in another place, and I try not to judge. You know, I try to stay yeah, open-minded, and you know, whether it's in Switzerland, there's some good and bad part. Whether it's in South Africa, there's some good and some bad, and I try to think in terms of what's, you know, what do I want to bring to the world,
Yeah.
based on where I've been, based on what I've experienced, and that's how I look at it. You know, I think it's and I mean, what I'm saying might come also from the culture points that,
Yeah.
you know, Swiss and South African, you know, what South Africa has gone through, and the neutrality in Switzerland. So
They have a history together.
there you go. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And from what I've researched, one could say you are a man of faith, including prayer and church. And so my question would be, on the one hand, how does your belief help you deal with adversity? And on the other hand, to get back to the theme, what do you think is the role of religion in this fight against discrimination and racism? Those two.
It's always been big for me. It's something that helped me when I was young. I think, you know, I discovered it through my family, but we weren't faithfully going to church every Sunday, but I did some, you know, camp that was around the religion and spirituality, and that really helped me at a time where I probably needed it when I was young, and you know, it helped me throughout my life. You know, I think it's great to have that connection with spirituality, and it's you know, it's it's something that's important for everyone. Everybody's, I think, looking for, you know, a meaning of life. And I think you find a lot of answer about the meaning of life in spirituality.
And yeah, where do you see the role of, I don't know, religion, the church, faith against discrimination and racism?
It's twofold, you know. I think in a lot of ways, my perspective on it, you know, it's that religion, not the spirituality and what's behind it, but religion in itself, you know, has been politicized a lot and brought a lot of the, you know, maybe not racism, but definitely divide, you know, in a lot of ways. So that's something that, you know, I'm not necessarily comfortable with, but I would say the spirituality for me is the most important. I think, you know, when you talk about religion, sometimes
You're out of luck.
sometimes religion, you know, it's about us and others. Spirituality, I think it's accessible for everyone. And whether it's Jesus, whether it's God, whether it's the Virgin Mary, whether it's Allah, I think that everybody can understand. And if we can respect everybody's spirituality, that's where I think we can connect. A lot of the, you know, the books talk about how to be, you know, how to treat others, and, you know, it's where I think we should find the meaning of all of that. If we look at racism,
Then the last one is a bit of a tough one. I've come across it with some of my interviewees, and it's racism fatigue. People saying, "Oh, I'm tired of racism. I don't want to hear about it anymore." What's your opinion on this so-called racism fatigue?
you know, I've even heard that from people that are actually being discriminated against. I think it's a defensive mechanism for people that don't want to be confronted with mistakes of the past or with situations that are unfortunate, where they beneficiate from it. And, oh, no, let's leave it this way. Yeah, after 400 years of free labor, after what happened between the Europe and Africa and the unbalance, it's easy now to say, oh yeah, enough of this racism talk. You know, I think a wrong is a wrong. You can't necessarily rewrite the wrong of the past, but looking for fairness, looking for equality, a lot of has been done. You know, I'm not talking from place, but a lot is always in motion. But yeah, I think it's necessary to have a mindful aspect on that and what others are going through, suffering through, and feeling like they don't beneficiate from the same as everybody else in society. So I think it's important to look at that perspective because it's a real thing.
Yeah. You've been back in Switzerland for a while now, and I think last year you were still shortly playing for your home team, a kind of farewell. Um,
It's
yeah, you
not the
played
best
for
song.
your home team as a kind of final dance, a farewell. And now, what are your activities and plans now, and what do you hope to achieve in the future?
So I've been back home, like you said, for a while, and even before coming back, I've been involved in real estate. In a situation like I am, just investing and thinking of the planning for the future. It's something that's always been something that I had to do, been jumped into, and I take it seriously to try to do it well. So working on real estate deals, real estate moves, and also, of course, staying involved with basketball. I
Yeah.
think I have a passion for it, and one of that passion now is translated to giving back and being able to kind of help with what I've been through. So there's also a passion in that, and just diversifying my outlook on life and my options, and keep moving with integrity.
Thank you very much. And now the last, almost last part, not quite, very close to the end. I call it non-trigger trigger, and it's trigger in the sense of it should get people thinking, and you can just very shortly say a little idea of whatever pops into your mind, and it's non-trigger because many people understand trigger just to be something like that causes trauma. I don't want to cause trauma,
Okay.
but it should be a little input, and it can be as short as you want.
Okay.
Some people say one word, that's fine. Other a sentence, yeah.
Sounds good.
So, Vevey,
Beautiful city, and that's it.
Bulls, Bulls,
Woo, amazing team, and amazing that I played for them.
law enforcement,
Clean it up. Let's do a little bit better.
Kobe,
Inspiration. Fallen too soon. Rest in peace. Big loss, big inspiration for me to this day.
Egypt,
Woo! Incredible country. I just had a recent trip there. It feels, I love history and I love archaeological sites. Beautiful.
faith,
Very important. Something that everybody should explore and try to find.
next one's a bit tough, Kamala Harris,
Better than Joe Biden.
then family,
It's everything.
Black Lives Matter,
Well, you have to support the movement. Black lives do matter. We shouldn't even have to say it.
last one, black, brown, yellow, white.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank
Good
you
luck to
very
you.
much.
Best
It's been
of luck.
really nice, very inspiring words, very thoughtful.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
been
you.
really amazing.
Great questions, and really enjoyed the time.
Thank you, Thabo.
Thank you.
Thanks.